Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and if you hear what sounds like a jackhammer in the background during this video, it's because there's a jackhammer being used down the road, it sounds like. This is Jim Balzani from Caleb and Brown describing how their custody works at Caleb and Brown using Fireblocks.
For our clients. But ultimately how it works is every client that holds assets with Caleb & Brown, you'll be given your own Fireblocks vault. That'll have your assets for each specific asset. So let's just say you have XRP and Bitcoin with Caleb & Brown. You'll have an XRP wallet address, which will be vaulted and will be separate from your Bitcoin wallet address. And those assets sit in cold storage. As I mentioned before, we don't charge anything for custody, but we also don't offer anything like yield or staking or lend it out. So it literally just sits there in cold storage and sits there until you would decide to make a trade or withdraw it. So that's the added benefit of and peace of mind that your assets just sit there. And it's equivalent to as if you were to use your own hardware wallet. It's just that it's done on a more larger institutional level scale. So that's how we do custody. In terms of how it actually works in getting a trade executed, the use of multi-party computation is used, which requires the approval of 3 distinct parties, including the client, to execute a trade, which means there's no single point of failure, which means that it requires approval of multiple parties where the wallet address or the private key of that wallet address is actually sharded as well. So it's top tier, it's institutional grade that we offer for clients if they want to use it. Again, as we mentioned earlier, if you have your own hardware wallet, there are no issues at all with withdrawing those assets to your own hardware wallet and just using us as an execution layer if you'd like. So it's really up to the client in terms of how much or how little they want to use our custody solution.
All right, that's why I've partnered with Caleb and Brown. They're one of my 2 solutions as far as storing my digital assets. You can go to xrpwealth589.com. I created that .com just so it was easy to tell you, and it forwards you right to my page on Caleb and Brown. All you have to do is click sign up today. We're at a 313 XRP. It came up a little bit. Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP reversed overnight losses. As analysts said, the growing threat to the Federal Reserve's independence is strengthening the long-term bullish case for digital assets. Just yesterday, CoinDesk had an article where they were like, altcoin season's over. They can't make up their mind. Bo Hans, this was yesterday, strengthening American leadership in digital financial technology. And here is, you couldn't get a better picture than that. We've got a pro-crypto president. If you'd told me that we were going to be seeing the things we're seeing right now a year ago, I would have been like, really? White House officially publishes digital assets report. Here is the stockpile. The reserve in the stockpile will be administered by the Treasury, which will establish an office, administrate, and maintain control of the associated custodial accounts. Now, folks, this is Bo Hans. The dirty little secret here, folks, is, Bitcoin Desk is asking them here. They're trying to get them to talk about the Bitcoin reserve. But the dirty little secret, folks, and pay attention, the dirty little secret is that the national digital asset stockpile is going to be way more important than the Bitcoin strategic reserve, and these guys know it. But they also know that they have to appease these Bitcoin wackos.
Look, I've said repeatedly, we want to accumulate as much as we can possibly get, and these budget neutral ways are outlined in the SBR executive order. We also have the Digital Assets National Stockpile, which gives credence to other ecosystems and what's being built elsewhere
XRP.
In the space. As the president likes to say, we have very smart people in the administration that are working on this. I think that we'll move on ways of accumulation that can be implemented most expeditiously. And I think that people will be very pleased with what we come up with. But I also encourage people just to understand that there's an infrastructure piece of this as well. And Treasury is working diligently on that, making sure everything's set up properly so we can move forward in the best way possible.
U.S. Treasury stage right. And there was something I wanted to show you. Let me get to it right here. I think Brad Combs from Digital Perspectives is directly over the target here. Here's how the United States acquires digital asset and becomes the leader in crypto. U.S. Treasury will issue digital asset bonds for U.S. domiciled digital assets and others. This will allow the U.S. government to acquire these assets not only without costing the taxpayer money, but also allowing them the opportunity to earn yield on those assets. Digital assets will be held in a reserve stockpile controlled by the U.S. Treasury, making the United States the largest holder of digital assets, especially the ones with utility, XRP. And then here he is again.
No, the federal government will never issue a stable coin. We don't want to even flirt with the line of a CBDC. We've said, the president's already banned a CBDC through executive order. Chairman Powell's actually come out and stated 3 separate times that it would take congressional action in order for a CBDC to be implemented. As part of that too, though, with Genius, and I've said this repeatedly, is this all but effectively destroys any prospect of a CBDC. When you can access, private enterprise and engage in that way, why would you ever want to use a government-backed stable? There's no purpose for it. There's no reason for it. We don't want Big Brother spying on the American consumers. We feel extremely strong about this, that a CBDC should never exist, and I think that Genius all but effectively accomplishes that.
You know what I find interesting is now they've got all these private companies like Ripple with their own stable coins. What else was private? What else is private? The Federal Reserve. No coincidences, folks. Crypto's Federal Reserve 2.0. It doesn't have to be issued by the Federal Reserve. These companies are private just like the Federal Reserve was created to be private. I remember studying it in college. He's right. Bitcoin is in a class of its own, a dinosaur with no use case. The real digital asset economy is coming, and they know it. Utility.
I would love to know what's the update on a potential Bitcoin strategic reserve.
Well, look, we have it. It's been established through executive order in the SPR. We also have the strategic national stockpile. The digital assets national stockpile. I think that we wanted to recognize Bitcoin for being unique, and we talk about what that looks like and kind of the threshold that Bitcoin has created. It's in a class of its own, and everyone recognizes that. But we also wanted to give credence to the work and the development that's happening across other ecosystems, and that's why we have this national stockpile.
That's the second time that he's been asked about Bitcoin, and he immediately goes to the stockpile because they know it's going to be more important than Bitcoin. It can't not be more important. Bitcoin has no use case. The entire financial system is going to be built on these other ledgers like XRP, Cardano, Solana, Sui, all the Ondo. There's no way that the ones that are actually, the system's actually going to be built on can't be bigger than Bitcoin.
Alongside, this actually requires some labor to get this set up properly. You have to build the infrastructure. You have to make sure that you're crossing your T's and dotting your I's to get this done the right way and have long-term success with it. But
that's enough of that. Let's move on. I'm not going to play this because but I just wanted to point out that the White House is literally issuing commercials to promote their new, becoming the crypto superpower of the world. Here's a Digital Chamber summed up what was in the report. Let's do it the quick way. Direct SEC leverage current exemption authority, affirm CFTC spot market authority for crypto, protect crypto consumers through proper disclosures, allow Americans to self-custody crypto without banks, protect crypto developers from being treated like banks, direct government to properly secure seized crypto private keys, prioritize digital asset user privacy, protect DeFi innovation, allow it to grow responsibly, ensure the U.S. leads on global crypto standard setting, encourage government agencies to use blockchain. That's their little summary. This one's another kind of commercial, but I wanted to point out the crypto era. It's coming. Stuart Alderati, comprehensive, helpful, and direct. The White House's digital assets report released this afternoon pushes Congress and U.S. federal agencies to act immediately following the passing of Genius Act, from call-outs in support of Clarity Act to establish crypto market structure rules, strengthening customer protections, enhancing national security measures. There's a lot in the 160-page report. The most pro-crypto administration we've ever seen. Now, our old buddy, Joseph Lubin, his arrogance has made a quick comeback. What's ironic about what he describes here, they were asking him if there was going to be something that knocks off Ethereum, but the irony of what he's describing here is exactly what I've been saying, the VC pump gang. That is how they've propped up Bitcoin, Ethereum, and they added Solana in the last couple of years. It's all VC PR backed, and I would go further than that. 95% of the crypto pundits are all VC PR machine backed. That's what we've watched for the last 10 years while we didn't have a level playing field. But they took the game to a further step. They gave Ethereum and Bitcoin, with the Hinman speech, a free regulatory pass for the last decade. So you don't have a real market. And on top of that, through regulatory capture, they tried to stop Ripple and XRP. All that's over in short order, folks. It's going to be fun to watch how arrogant Lubin is when XRP jumps Ethereum.
We've had so many Ethereum killers come and go. It usually starts with the kernel of a good idea. Passionate founders who maybe want to go for the big prize rather than building in an already thriving ecosystem. It gets supercharged by VCs who see this way of growing a protocol, making lots of money, and
the reason he's so familiar with it is because that's what they did with Ethereum. There's a reason those whales are disguised. A lot of those whales are VCs, in my opinion.
Selling their tokens early to retail. That gets exacerbated by journalists who like to clickbait the death of Ethereum, the death of Bitcoin, even. Sorry. The bad journalists, and so it's really that triumvirate that believes that Ethereum has a chance of being dethroned, but Ethereum is actually orders of magnitude larger than any other ecosystem. Bitcoin's a different special snowflake, but there's never been any other ecosystem that is as big as, has as much talent as, and is as mature as the Ethereum ecosystem.
And then one of his buddies from the ETHgate fame was always and is always just as arrogant. Listen to this. This is what's his name? I'm drawing Andrew Keys. And if you remember, what the video that really exposed ETHgate was that old Charles Gasparino video where he said that they were trying to form that Ethereum, the guys from Consensus, and he named Joseph Lubin and Andrew Keys, that these were the guys that were working with the SEC and the CFTC behind the scenes, and this was the Ethereum, ETHgate, the whole thing. This guy was the other guy that Gasparino mentioned in that video.
There are about $250 billion of high-quality liquid assets on blockchains. Things like stablecoins or bars of gold, barrels of oil, stocks, bonds, derivatives. And of those $250 billion, 90% of those high-quality liquid assets are residing and settling on Ethereum. The next participant is about 9%, which is Solana.
Right, that VC game got started a little late. But these guys would have you believe that Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana have all this market cap and all this development because of something other than regulatory capture of Ripple and something other than their regulatory free pass. But I'll say it again, you have not seen the real market. You can't see the real market until you have the level playing field. That's what Ryan Zagun from Ripple was saying years ago. You're about to get to see all these guys are going to have to compete on a level playing field. And when they do, the better technologies are going to rise to the top. I think Cardano, just like Hoskinson says, I think Cardano eventually jumps Ethereum. It's just the way it is. The liquidity is going to flow to the better technologies and the things that move fast, the things that can scale, and Ethereum ain't it. Okay, we're going to go into DAIXRP.com. You'll never believe who's coming to Ripple Swell this year. There's a lot more. I got a lot more to cover. Go to DAIXRP.com for the Patreon. If you'd rather join through YouTube, click the join button below any of these YouTube videos, or you can hit subscribe on X to join. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe. Hit the like button. Tell your friends and family. Here we go.